On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very exclusive treat. He is the dating coach for men who has helped thousands of men overcome confidence issues, improve communication skills, and attract high-value women, just to name a few. He is a certified life and executive coach with a mission to transform lives, and his content will penetrate your soul. Big facts. Over the years, he's helped men in over 30 countries overcome social anxiety, build and gain confidence, and find the right partner, which I deeply admire. His journey from struggling with insecurities to becoming a beacon of hope for men worldwide is nothing short of inspiring, and he has made him the go-to expert for dating advice for men across the world. He's just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the insightful, transformative, and empowering, the abundant, and handsome David Meessen. How you doing, brother?
Thanks so much. What an intro, bro. Appreciate it.
Good. Anything good by you? You feel nice and elevated? You ready to rock?
Come again? Sorry?
You ready to rock? I think good by you?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm so pumped for today's conversation. It's not the first time you and I collaborated. We had you on one of our other shows recently, and I just had such a good time, brother, and I love what you're doing, and the community loved it too. So I said, hey, let's go deeper. Let's continue the conversation and so forth. Awesome. For our listeners, for our community, in case you're not familiar, my best suggestion is do a deep dive, play catch up, check out all the unbelievable stuff that you have going on. What I think will be most valuable today is we just dive in and have an unbelievable conversation. But before we get started, I have a little icebreaker for you. You ready for me?
Let's go.
Okay. For you personally, what does it mean to live an authentic life?
To do what you want to do. Because oftentimes, be that in relationships or in life in general, we don't really do what we want to do because we are worried that we're going to lose the approval of an intimate partner, of our friends. I was talking to a client of mine yesterday. He used to work for Goldman Sachs, and now he works for a different hedge fund between London and New York. And he says he has families back in his home, he lives in London, but he has family back in his home country. And some of his friends, they don't necessarily approve of the lifestyle that he has. And he has a very healthy lifestyle. He works a lot. He works in finance, as you can imagine. And he's super kind, swearing, not one of those typical arrogant finance bros, but like a really, really sweet, loving guy. And he says, we talked about that. And I said, they're not your friends. If they don't encourage you, if they don't truly want to see you win, then they're not your friends. And for me, to live an authentic life is to do what you want to do. And not in a selfish, hedonistic way in terms of short-term pleasure, but in terms of long-term, I want this outcome in my relationships. I want this outcome in my health. I'm going to do that. And I think we've lost touch. And that's something that I went through with my ex-wife. If we don't listen to what's going on inside of us, none of that matters. It's like happiness. I think in life, there's only two things. It's happiness and meaning. Happiness is making myself happy. Meaning is making other people happy. To me, that's all it is.
I mean, that's where we dropped the mic, but we're just getting warmed up. And to be honest, I'm taking a quick note, which I don't often do during a pod. So that was beautiful. Happiness and meaning. And you're speaking my language, but you speak it to my soul, because I spent 13 years on Wall Street, the finance world, prior to me, but I'm doing what I'm doing now. But I would say, if I'm being honest and vulnerable, I spent 35 years being inauthentic. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I was trying to show up to the world based on what I thought they wanted to see from me. I created this persona that wasn't even real. And then when I finally reinvented myself, I had the courage to say, no matter what, right now, for the first time in my life, I'm just going to be me. And that's when people began to see me, and my business, everything took off, got engaged and all that. But I love the way that you describe that. And the reason why I wanted to hit on this is because you articulate this stuff so beautifully. And so many people are struggling with this, to really be them, to do what they want to do, to chase their dreams, to follow their passions, to say no if something's out of alignment. And I know that you speak from contrast, because this is something that you had to work through as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This conversation is going to be fun, brother. I love your content.
Thank you so much.
I think that most people probably would associate with you as a dating coach for men, but I think women can get so much value as well from the stuff that you talk about. Let's just open it up right there. It seems like the landscape of dating has become much more complicated. What is the landscape of dating these days compared to maybe where it once was?
Yeah, I think it has become more complicated, but I think people also like to make excuses. They're like, oh, it's more difficult now than it was. Really? I think 100 years ago, our grandfathers, they would have given a lot to have a phone that you can touch and a beautiful woman appears who wants to get to know you. you know?
Right.
So that didn't exist. Online dating is a great tool if you use it properly, if you don't use it too much. So I say to people, spend 15, 20 minutes a day on it. Otherwise you can get dopamine depleted, right? Because it's almost like soft adult videos, if you wish, right? Where you get a dopamine spike and without effort, so it drops. So that can exhaust you if you don't use it the right way, but it's a really great tool. But I think people always hear, like if we start with online dating first, oh, there's so many men on dating apps so they don't work. Well, that's nonsense. First of all, you're not even competing with most men because most people don't have a great profile, right? And second of all, in the real world, you're not even competing with most people either because most men don't even approach. There's only 3 ways to meet women to find the right person. And for women, it's the same thing, by the way, right? It's just the onus, the responsibility is on us, I believe, as men to make the first step. But that doesn't mean that women can't. Absolutely, they can, and I would encourage women, if you see somebody that you really like, go and speak with him because most likely he doesn't have the balls to do it. Some of the most amazing men, they'll never introduce themselves to you. So as a woman, yeah, absolutely go make that first step because once you're in a relationship, he'll be probably a great guy. But they will never take that first step. There's only 3 ways to meet somebody. There's dating apps, there's Instagram, and there's in-person approaches. There's social circle, which is a little bit of a difficult one. I wouldn't recommend at work ever because you can get fired as a man very easily. And your social circle is very limited. Yeah, my cousin Mary, she really thinks her friend Susan is great for you. And then you realize there's an evident lack of compatibility within 5 minutes, right? But there's a lot of ways. But men don't even approach. Like online dating, you're not competing. You're only really competing with like 10, 20% of men on the platform. Either the guys who are just genetically great looking like yourself or guys who've actually worked on their profile. And that's very few. Most people have terrible profiles, terrible bios. So it's actually very easy to stand out once you do it the right way. And if you just introduce yourself to women in everyday scenarios, you stand out immediately because the amount of people who do that is virtually 0. It's almost nobody. In whatever city you live in, very few men actually, when they're not intoxicated, introduce themselves. So yeah, the landscape has changed, but I think we live in absolutely the best time ever with online dating and with the fact that nobody is actually introducing themselves in a respectful and calibrated manner. It's easier than ever to stand out. That's true.
This is unbelievable, brother. And I'll just be vulnerable. This is surprise people when I say this. I'm an introvert. But one thing before I met my fiance and so forth, because it used to be uncomfortable for me, and I know that you talk about this a lot, to approach a pretty girl, right? For whatever reason, my mindset, whatever. And then I just started like removing the expectation of that every girl would potentially be a dating partner. And I just started becoming more friendly, striking up a conversation in the elevator, at the coffee shop, just saying things to open up a quick set or a quick, piece of dialogue without any expectation. And then I started to get momentum, and before you know it, it was easier for me to just engage in anybody and not feel intimidated and so forth. I know that you talk about this a lot. There's a lot of introverts in the community and so forth.
Yeah.
What is something that maybe one of them can do to start to overcome that self-doubt or fear and become a little bit more comfortable approaching a pretty girl?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to understand that we as human beings, we exist in 3 zones. We have our comfort zone, where we do the things we already know how to do. Very little insecurity around that. Then if we do something that's a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging, we come into the zone of challenge or the zone of growth, where we feel a little bit of anxiety, we feel a little bit of stress, we feel nervous, but we're still able to take action. And then if we do something that's subjectively even more difficult, then we get into the zone of overwhelm. We're like, okay, go introduce yourself to these 5 women. I can't. I'm actually frozen. Subjectively, it's too much. And that's one thing that I've learned from one of the best psychologists in Germany. I'm not one, but I was able to learn a lot from him over the years. It was like, subjectivity is everything. If subjectively you feel like you can't, you're frozen, then you can't in that moment. There's ways to change it in the moment, but the simplest way is to just use progressive desensitization. There's 2 ways to overcome fear. I mean, a couple. But one is to just jump into the deep end, which may work, or it may make it worse, or you just go step by step. Tom Bilyeu says we as human beings are the ultimate adaptation machine. And it's really true. We can learn anything step by step. I have no idea about your world of finance, nothing. But I know that if I were to dedicate myself to it for years, I know I could if I were to go step by step by step, if I were to learn the basics. So the way you do this in this particular scenario is you can just start by walking through the world and just make an eye contact. That's the first step. Then you walk, so imagine like a pyramid and you add an incremental level of difficulty each time. Because going from never having done an approach to walking up to a random lady in the middle of the street saying, excuse me 2 seconds, you're really cute, I had to come meet you, freaks most men out. And most men think they could, but they actually can't at this point in time. They could, but would they? Because they haven't gone through the process. So they tell themselves they could, but they can't because it's approach anxiety. But the way you overcome that Because first of all, you can just make eye contact with people. That's enough for some people. Then the next level might be just say hello and walking by. Ooh, there's already a little bit of nervous. Okay, I do that 10, 20 times. Then I walk by, for example, and I just ask, excuse me 2 seconds. I can ask a dude, sorry bro, where's Starbucks? Or where's Burger King? I do that 10 times with dudes. Then I might do it with attractive guys. I don't care. Then I do it with a woman that mightn't necessarily be my type, ask her for directions. Then I ask very attractive women, in my opinion, for the directions. Then I ask for directions, and then I have a little bit of a conversation, and then I walk away. Then I ask for directions, have a little bit of a conversation, and maybe ask for Instagram. And then you can build, what I do with clients is what I recommend for people to do. You build your own little pyramid of difficulty where you have enough layers in there that each individual step is just so small that you can easily do it. You do it 10, 20 times, and then your neurology changes because you're creating new pathways and new experiences. Because you can't think yourself into what you will be like as a human being once you've actually done it. And Brad Yates, he's an amazing emotional freedom techniques teacher. He's one of my first teachers ever. He used to say it's not about leaving our comfort zone, it's about expanding our comfort zone. Because we temporarily leave it, but eventually it becomes part of it, but we have to go step by step. And then eventually we can get to a point where at any given point in time, you just say, excuse me 2 seconds, you're really cute, had to come and say hi. Or we use whatever opener we want. But to be able to convey intent of the opening of the conversation, romantic interest, that is too scary for most people. But if we do 7 or 8 or 10 steps in between, it's easily manageable because the next step is only a little bit more difficult.
It makes perfect sense to me. And we're talking about like approaching girls here, but really this is a lesson for life, right?
For everything.
A little bit of momentum.
Yes.
And then your vessel begins to expand.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you're on step 4, which used to seem so challenging, but now it's just the appetizer, and you begin to work your way up, and you begin to expand what you consider to be anxious or scary.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting that, why is it that someone that's physically attractive, guy or girl, makes it tougher for someone to approach? What's actually happening there that makes you more likely to approach someone else that maybe you didn't find attractive than someone that you find super attractive? What is that all about?
Because you think you have something to lose. Because if it's somebody that you don't find that attractive subjectively, then you're like, I probably don't see myself in a relationship with them anyway. But once you see there's potential, this fear of loss, Tony Robbins says this, we only suffer if we believe less loss or never, right? It's loss. The second I anticipate loss, I don't even have anything yet, but I can really see this going with her or with him, I actually like him or her, then we project loss into the future, and then we suffer because of that. Now I got something to lose.
Yeah, beautiful said. For you personally, this is straight off the cuff. For you personally, brother, I'm just curious because I'm about to get married. What are some of the most important characteristics or traits for you in a partner?
The first one is high self-esteem. Now, Jordan Peterson says he doesn't really like it, that term, because basically it just means how much do they like themselves. I'm paraphrasing. But how happy is that person? Because I think everybody goes through struggles in their life, and that's completely normal. But I would urge everybody here, man or woman, if you're looking for an intimate partner, find somebody who's naturally happy. And we are all happy and sad in some moments, but what's their baseline, right? How neurotic are they most of the time? And by the way, like, just pick somebody who's low in neuroticism. That's a fact. Your life will be really bad now, I actually score high in neuroticism, but I've been into personal development my whole life and I have habits. So for example, if I go to the gym, it's no problem. But for example, Fernanda, my fiance, she doesn't have to go to the gym. She's happy no matter what. If I don't go to the gym, I'm a miserable, grumpy within 3 days, you know? So it's like, I need habits. I need the whole realm of personal development to be there, which obviously, that's why she's super peaceful and happy. I'm the drama queen of the relationship, you know? So it's like, which is difficult to live with. Find somebody who's just naturally happy and peaceful and happy with themselves, because if she or he is deeply within themselves, deeply unhappy within themselves, and then you're trying to fix it, it won't work. One of the biggest mistakes men make in dating, or people in general, is they date for potential as opposed to for actuality. Oh yeah, if he or she only did 3... Yeah.
I've been there. I hired employees with that same mindset, and I had to learn lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, if only they did 3 months of therapy or something, they'll be fine. If you're not happy with this person, I have a situation with a client right now. He's like, David, I really would like to go in a relationship with her. It's not like I'm giving him permission or anything, but I'm saying you really shouldn't, because there's this one thing where it's like she's in therapy for. I was like, anybody can fix themselves. It's not a problem, right? Like whatever label somebody has slapped on you, you can absolutely fix this. But most people just won't. That's a fact. Most people won't. They could, but they won't. So don't date somebody for the potential. You either are really excited about how they are right now or not. Like if there's a deal breaker right now, just assume it's not going to get better.
Yeah. In fact, it only probably gets worse the deeper you go, relationship, kids, marriage, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What, do you have a date yet for the wedding?
No, not yet. Not yet. Busy with a lot of things right now. And for me, it's like there's no rush. Like we're gonna do it, like for a fact. And I also want it to be really good. I really wanted to be special for her because I don't really care too much about the day. I'm like, for me, I like rituals because I did martial arts a lot of, well, I'm not a professional fighter or anything, but I was teaching karate at my university. I like the rituals. For example, in karate, we have something called the kick of birth, which seems silly from the outside, but you know, if you listen to or watch The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell, you understand the importance of it. For example, if you pass your belt test, let's say you get a brown belt, I'm a brown belt in karate, then by the end of the exam, if you pass it, you tie your new belt around your wrist, you stand there and your instructor kicks you in the gut, right? Women are now, by the way, kicked in the leg, not in the gut anymore, because that instructor of mine, that hero of mine, he kicked his daughter when she was promoted, not knowing that she was pregnant. Everything was fine, thank God, but since then they get kicked in the leg. But as a man, you get kicked in the gut. And the idea is you die to your old self. It's a kick of birth is what it's called. And you're born a newer version, the higher belt in karate. So I like the symbolism, but the day in and of itself, I don't think I care. Like, I think people place too much importance on the one day. And it's like, I think it's just the one day doesn't really matter that much if life is that awesome. I know it's going to be a great day, but I want it more for her than I want it for me, you know?
Fair enough, brother. Look, we were engaged for 2 years, just like you, building a business, super busy, running marathons,
Exactly.
all this stuff. I would just say being a fiance is a great season. So your race, your pace, brother.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah. When is your date? When is it going to be?
2 weeks.
Yeah, exciting, man.
Yeah, by the time this drops, God, he'll be married, man. It's crazy to think, but
how do
good stuff.
How do you feel about it?
I feel great, man. To be honest with you, I've never been more excited about anything. I had a couple relationships that weren't healthy, even toxic and so forth. And look, I take accountability as well. I was at my best self when I reinvented myself from finance to this in the pandemic and really got my life together, hit my stride and became in alignment. When I met my fiance now, I knew right away. And I'm excited for the actual wedding day. But like you mentioned, it's really about the sacred union to build for the next 70 years. That's what I'm really pumped about. So it's just a fun season for both of us, me and you.
Congratulations, man. So cool.
Yeah. And on that note, one of the other things that you talk about is to find out about compatibility as early as you can.
Yes.
And that's interesting because I imagine some people start dating someone, say that from a dating app, whatever. It's the honeymoon phase. Everything's, sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
And when things are good, you don't want to rock the boat, so to speak. But also, if you are pretty serious about this one, it's a good time to find out. You guys might have the lust here, but if that ever wore off, are we actually compatible? Do we have similar core values? What's the best way to find that out or to even open that conversation?
When you're in it or in the beginning?
I guess in the beginning.
So the first thing is there's a cool book by Jorge Bucay, I don't know how you pronounce his name, called The Three Questions. I think it only exists in German and in Spanish, not in English. But basically, I'll give you the essence. He says there's 3 questions you got to ask yourself. The first one is, who am I? The second one is, where am I going? The third one is, with whom? Who am I? What are my values? What do I stand for? What do I stand against? What I'm willing to die for? What am I willing to live for? What must people never say about me at my funeral? Where am I going? Like, what are my goals? And then 3 is, who do I want with me? And so once you understand, okay, what are my values? Because if we talk about compatibility regarding values means the same. I gotta have the same core values, right? Be it religion, politics, but they're just a symptom of deeper values. What are my core values? What do I want people to experience? We have to be aligned with that. Personality doesn't have to be the same. Fernando and I have very different personalities, but they're very, very compatible. And then you have to, once you know who you are, you need to write. First of all, you need to write pages upon pages. And then you simply basically write a list of deal breakers, nice to haves, and must haves. You write down what is it that I would never tolerate in a relationship, what is it that I must have, and then also it's important to have nice to haves, but because you realize if it's a nice to have, it's not a must have, right? But a lot of people should transition their nice to haves into must haves. A lot of people think they have too high standard, they don't have high enough of a standard when it comes to compatibility. And then the way you really find out how you're compatible, it's 2 things. Most people think it's by asking questions, but you can't roll up on the first date with a checklist. Be like, by the way, Right, that's a bit weird. So the way you really find out whether you're compatible is by being radically honest and being very provocative in your communication. If you're very provocative, not for the sake of being provocative, but by being radically honest, and then eventually Gary Vee, he talks about kind candor, right? But I feel like there's stages. In the beginning, if you imagine a spectrum of too calibrated and too polite on the one hand, and too radically honest where you're offending people and you're just not a nice person. Most people are too far on this side. You have to move more towards radical honesty, because if I'm on the date and I clearly communicate my values, I've been on a date once 6 years ago where within 5 minutes we realized, I said something very provocative that I'm not going to say right now, not insulting to her at all, but I just attacked a certain ideology that I didn't like. And so I said that very provocatively, and then we shook hands, we walked away. It was a very respectful ending of the date. It was actually funny. A couple of years later, she found one of my TikTok videos. She commented, she goes, I went on a date with this guy. It was the worst date I've ever been on, which is hilarious, right? Just because, but it wasn't a bad date. We shook hands and everything was fine, but our values didn't align. But I would much rather find that out in the beginning, because most men and women, they're trying to get along. Especially men do this, because women on average come more from abundance than men. If a woman at any given day of the week is alone at home, it's by choice, on average. For a man, that's not the case. So like, men are really trying, but they really can't. So since we're not coming from that much abundance, right, most of us at least, we have this fear of loss, and then we go back and we change how we communicate because we're trying to make it work. You shouldn't try to make it work. Don't try to make it work with the wrong people. Speak what's on your mind. There's an effectiveness to communication, obviously. There's authenticity and then there's effectiveness. I can say the same thing that's true in an effective and calibrated way and a completely ineffective manner. But at the base has to be radical honesty, because this saying is only half true, but there's some truth to it. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I didn't make this up, somebody said it, but it's so true. Because with your core friends, your values are aligned and you're radically honest, nobody's gonna get offended. Because if I state X strong opinion, some people are gonna really like me for it, some people are gonna really hate me for it. And that's fine, because most men communicate like lukewarm water. And the way, coming back to your question, you screen for compatibility is you start communicating radically honestly. And then you're gonna lose 9 out of 10 people. Lose, meaning you never had them to begin with, because the potential for a future relationship was never there anyway. Because compatibility you can't create, you can only discover that. And the way you discover that is by speaking your truth in a radically honest way, and then you let the cards fall where they may. And if you're aligned, she'll get very, very attracted.
Brother, I could not agree more. And look, for me these days, I'm all about going deep. I want the deep conversation. I'm not really into small talk. Yeah. So want to know as early as possible if you guys are aligned. That doesn't just mean come with the checklist, like you said. There's a way to communicate effectively where you can open it up and you guys can get on the same page or not pretty early on. For anybody listening, not that I don't want to say you want to waste time, but we're not going to be here forever. Like you had on that date, like all good, really nice to meet you. I don't think we're the right fit for each other. All the best. Exactly. Rather know as early as you possibly can, so you could spend more time and energy with the potential right person, right suitor.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. This is so helpful, brother. And again, I know that most of your content is intentional and dedicated towards dating, but I really think these are life lessons that are going for anywhere. One of the things that you talk about often are optimizing your looks. And it's interesting because when I coach a lot of people, and people have these big desires. They want 1,000 watts of energy from their soulmate, but their vessel can only hold 60%. It's like they're not going to the gym, they're not taking care of themselves, they're not looking the best that they can, doing whatever they can to attract the person that they say that they want. Yeah. So why is it so important, and what is something somebody can do to begin to optimize their looks?
First of all, haircut and beard and general hygiene, that's one. Even just haircut makes a big difference, right? That's even just as a premise, most men don't even realize.
I get 2 a week.
Yeah, amazing. Really good. Yeah, I should be getting it more. But it makes such a difference because you really feel good about yourself then. And so many men, they don't even realize they can really optimize their looks. That's one thing. Hair and beard. And if you're bald, doesn't matter at all. People are insecure around baldness, doesn't matter at all. Jason Statham has no issues, right? Yeah, you could argue because of status, but some women really like that, some women really don't. Some women really hate gingers, some like it, right? It's like, it is what it is. You have a target audience. Once people understand target audience, you realize, I just have to communicate to that target audience. That's what I mean. Good. So that's one. And then also get somebody to help you with style. because most men dress horribly, right? And it used to be the same thing for me. When I met my mentor in dating when I was working for a big tech company in Dublin years ago, when I was still with my ex-wife. And then because look, my mother is a nurse, my father is a doctor, right? My father works in the medical space in Germany, and my mom's a nurse. My mom is the sweetest, loving person. Not a single person in my family had style at all. My mom always said, dress warm, make sure the jacket covers your bum. Right? It was like that, right? So I had no style whatsoever. And I didn't care because I was just training martial arts all the time, right? I didn't care. I had nobody to impress. I didn't care. So, and the funny thing is, to be honest, you don't even need to dress well. If you have excellent communication skills in person, it doesn't matter how you dress. It really doesn't. I'm going to make the counterpoint in a second. But if you have excellent communication skills, you can dress really, really bad and get unbelievable results. That's a fact, okay? If you learn to approach and do that properly and create emotions, none of that matters. So don't be too insecure about the outfits. But nonetheless, it makes it better. But like really simply, just get a shirt that's like slim fit if you're in shape. If you're not that in shape, wear a black shirt, right? Put a suit, or you don't have to wear a suit to a date, but just wear a shirt and wear trousers that are not too baggy. I know there's different senses of fashion, but it's like, don't wear like something that's too baggy. And it's very simple. Just go to Google Images and search men's fashion, men's style. And then ask somebody you know who has really good style to give you some advice, right? Can be women, can be gay dudes. They are awesome at that oftentimes, right? Just somebody that you know that can give you like an external perspective, because it's very easy to just change that up. Because for online dating, you have to have amazing outfits. Outfits and pictures matter a lot on online dating. In person, it matters a lot less, as long as you dress like professionally and kind of good. Yeah.
I think this is so important, brother. And also, like, look, not everybody has to be martial arts or marathon or in perfect shape, but just a sign that it looks like that you put in effort to take care of yourself sends a message to both you and also your potential suitor. It means that you give it, for lack of better words, right? And like, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Like, if you don't care about the way that you show up now, I mean, what's it going to be like in 30 years? And maybe it's not as easy to stay in shape. So I just think, and again, I know everyone's at different places with this stuff, but just a little bit of effort, cleaning up your facial hair if you're a guy, being intentional, I think is the right word. It sends a message. And also, it gives us confidence, right? When you get a nice haircut or you get a new outfit and it fits you good, you just feel good. And as a result, right or wrong, it exudes a little bit of a different vibration because you're kind of feeling yourself a little bit. And that's just a good thing. It's contagious.
100%. Absolutely, yeah. And gym, like, let's talk about that. Every man should work out. The gym is so boring to me. Martial arts sessions I can do all day long. I'm excited about them. Gym is boring as hell to me. It's so boring, but it just has to get done.
Really?
You know, I hate the gym. It's so boring, but I do it, right? I've been doing it I'm extremely consistent. I go 3 times a week. I train martial arts, then I took a break for many years, and now I'm training again with a guy who has a fight coming up on UFC Fight Pass. He's 28. He's been training for 15 years. Absolute legend, right? So I'm starting to take private classes with him. It's amazing. That I love. Gym is just something like brushing your teeth. It just has to get done because as a man, you just have to lift, even just 2 times a week, right? If you do other stuff, it's cool, but you have to lift heavy stuff 2 times a week because of testosterone. It's just mental. Yes, physique-wise, it makes a big difference. And like when it comes to weight loss, it's all nutrition, it's not the gym. But you need to go and lift some heavy stuff because people don't even realize how, you know that probably, like you evidently work out extremely regularly. If you don't work out for 3 or 4 days, you feel it immediately, don't you?
I mean, yeah, for me, I'm a workout every type of guy type of cat. I'm not saying that that's what everybody should do. Just for me, because of the things that you just mentioned, I love it. It's a psychological thing. The physical is it's a bonus. Right now, I'm training for the New York City Marathon. Over the last few years, running has been the priority. And when I started running a lot, I kind of put working out on the back burner. On the days I wasn't running, I would just go and maintain. But recently, I started going back to the public gyms when I'm not running, brother. I forgot how fun it was to climb a bank, to lift some heavy, get the testosterone going. So it just goes to show it's important to have that in your repertoire, even if you don't love it. Find the joy or find the love in it, especially because of the results.
Because the result is immediate after. Like the second you finish the workout, you get the payoff. That's the beautiful thing. Or at least half an hour later after you've had some food. But the payoff is immediate. Because I don't know what the studies say, testosterone boost for up to 36 hours afterwards. That is the immediate payoff that you can get instantaneously regardless of what shape you're in.
Nobody, I don't think, has ever went to the gym or worked out in
Yeah.
class and be like, shit, I wish I didn't work out.
Well, that was a waste of my time. No, like I hate it. There's plenty of times where I experience severe negative emotions while I'm there. I'm just like, this is so unbelievably boring. Like, because martial arts is so much fun for me. There's so much happening. The gym is so boring. I'm just like, it doesn't matter. I listen to a podcast while I'm doing it, or I just focus on it. It's just that discipline aspect. And I think, but as Andrew Huberman talks about it, doing something you really dislike doing, pushing through that resistance is actually what keeps your dopamine high. So it is a healthy thing in essence.
Yeah, especially when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You go to the top of your capacity, you're more available. Right?
Yeah.
Variables, support, blessings, and all that stuff. I wanted to ask you about inner dialogue. I know that depending upon the tools that one might have, inner dialogue can crush someone or elevate them to the top of their own potential. How important is inner dialogue, and what is something someone could do to maybe start to begin to control their inner dialogue?
Yeah, with dating especially, it's everything. I think in life it's everything, but it's one of the most important components. If I approach somebody and the approach doesn't go the way I want it to, and then I have a negative inner dialogue and I punish myself and I live in an adversarial relationship with myself, that will cause suffering. It's not the things that happen, it's the meaning we ascribe to it and then how we keep talking about it. So first of all, what people have to understand when it comes to inner dialogue, that's two components. It's not just the content of the words, but it's also how we say them. Gunther Schmidt, amazing psychologist in Germany, he talks about this. Our inner dialogue also has certain submodalities to it. Like the voice can be really dark and heavy, or it could be light. Try to change a negative dialogue like, oh, am I ever gonna find love? Am I ever gonna find love? I'll never figure this out too. I'll never figure this out. It sounds so silly, and he does this, but it's cutting edge neuroscience, he explains, because it's a pattern interrupt. You cannot believe the same negative thought if it's said with a different tonality. So with inner dialogue, first of all, it's not just the words, it's also how you say them in your own mind. So the most important thing is, first of all, recognizing that you can control it and that you have choice. And it starts with a decision to just not do that anymore. That's one. Now that's not enough, but it's the first step. The first step is, I will not keep engaging in a self-defeating inner dialogue. It's just a decision. So then what's gonna happen is the old patterns are naturally gonna fire because you've done it for 30, 40, 50 years of your life, right? Then when they come, Jack Kornfield, one of the best meditation teachers, he says, you let them arise in the space of loving awareness. The thoughts come and you say, oh, interesting. Instead of fully associating with a thought and then giving it power and then believing it and then letting the thought make us suffer, we say, oh, interesting. The self-critical mind. Oh, the self-judgment mind, or the judgmental mind. Thank you for your opinion. I'm okay right now. So you recognize the thought, he calls it in the space of loving awareness. The thought comes up, you're like, oh, that's an old pattern. Not gonna do that anymore, thank you. You just recognize it and you dissociate from it. The way you dissociate from it is by, first you need awareness. And in the beginning, what's gonna happen is you're just gonna automatically be in it and then you catch yourself. Meditation helps with that, but you can just meditate, have a meditative practice throughout the day, but just bringing awareness to like, oh, why am I suffering? When I'm suffering, it's like, what's the thought that I believe that's making me suffer? When I feel bad, what's the thought that I believe that's making me suffer? And the thought isn't even real, because most of the time I lack data. It's not a thought that I thought all the way to the end, because the thought that's making me suffer, if I were to think it all the way to the end, it wouldn't be so bad, because, oh, at the end of it, there's a solution. I've just only thought it through to a couple of layers, but not all the way through. So first, it's awareness, like, okay. For example, I do in a person like, that didn't go well. Well, I'm never gonna figure this out. Ooh, old pattern, thank you. Is it true? Do I know this to be true? No. And just like, I'll cut it in that moment. I'm like, I will not go into that. I make a decision, this. I will not do that anymore. And then I override it. And people, especially people who've been in personal development a little bit, they like to do technique number 17. But people who win, they win because of the basics. The basics are affirmations. It just works. Tony Robbins calls it incantations, which is basically just affirmations with the use of your body. But affirmations, they work. What does it mean? It's just a rewiring of my inner dialogue. If you say Try it. Try saying, I'm awesome 1,000 times today and see if you don't feel more positive. Try it. Try it. It's just people hear affirmations, but they don't actually do it, or they think it's affirming something that isn't true, because affirmations can have the negative effect if you affirm something that isn't true, because then there's a part in you that goes, you're bullshitting yourself. And then there's conflict. But if I affirm something that's true, or I use affirmation in a progress-oriented way, as in every day in every way I'm getting better and better, or I just do an approach of like, that was fucking awesome. That was fucking awesome. Because regardless of whether I get the number or not, I need to reward myself, because the emotional impact of a rejection, especially in the beginning, is so high that I have to empower myself and say, that was fucking awesome. Every approach is a win regardless of the outcome. Every cold call is a win regardless of the outcome. I can't control free will, thank God. So all I can do is offer myself. Yeah, there's a skill set component that I need to improve, but it is absolutely fundamental that I refuse to live in an adversarial relationship with myself. So it starts with a decision, then it's awareness, and then you got to rewire a new pattern.
Brother, I love how fired up you just got. It's unbelievable, very contagious. And you're talking about awareness, I call it consciousness, similar thing, but this is really the needle mover for everybody listening. Like, this is a 9-figure conversation. It all starts with this, becoming aware of the patterns that got you here.
Yeah.
And if you're really committed to getting to your next level, then first, is this thought still serving us? Oh, I'm insecure, or I'm not good enough to approach that girl, or I don't have confidence. Just delete the file. Right? And let's put something else in there that's a little bit more empowering, and then utilize that as an affirmation to take us to our next level. And I love that you said, don't take your word for it, test it out. But first, you have to become aware of the pattern, and then obviously the decision and being committed to change it. And once you become aware that this no longer serves us, goodbye. And then put something in and try that on for size and start giving that energy, no choice but to go to your next level if you're committed to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm curious. I imagine with the martial arts and just what you do, but obviously it probably plays a big role, but how big does spirituality play in your life and also in your business?
I did my first meditation when I was 7 years old, and my parents, they got me into that. Sorry?
When you were 7 years old?
Yeah. Now, obviously it was like a proper meditation, but basically what happened was, I was in the backyard on a Saturday, we were playing in the summer, my mother calls us for lunch, and then my father comes and goes, here's 3 raisins, this is your lunch, meditate on that. It's like, touch the raisin, feel the raisin, I'm like, fuck off with your raisin, where's my food? Right? Like, what the fuck is this? You lured me in here on the false premises, raisin, right? But so my parents, they got me into personal development from an early age. I didn't regularly meditate, obviously then, but I started EFT when I was 14, emotional freedom technique. I started listening to Jack Kornfield, who is, in my opinion, the greatest meditation teacher out there, who founded the Spirit Rock Meditation Center. A lot of the tech billionaires there's a beautiful video with Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, and Jack Kornfield on stage, who's a student of Jack Kornfield. And so he's a legend. So I've been listening to his stuff since I was 16 years of age. And so he has he's like a Buddhist spiritual aspect. But without any religion, I think there's so much value in it, because he teaches meditation. But it's not just that, he teaches mindfulness meditation or Vipassana meditation or so many different types of meditation, but it's his way is so beautiful. So for me, it plays a big role. I'm not religious personally, I'm spiritual. I am respectful of whatever people want to do. I think for me, there is. So I can tell you where I'm struggling with this right now, with spirituality, right? Because it's not even spirituality. It's the problem is, and I don't think I've ever talked about this publicly, because I'm not interested in debates. This is just something, I'm not debating people. But a thought that I'm having is, because on the one hand, I would love to just fully believe in God. I would love that. And a part of me does. But on the other hand, then I listen to Sam Harris, and some of the arguments he makes are just too good. I'm just like, so for example, right? I love this idea of, ultimately, I'm still going to believe in a God because it has utility, right? Sam Harris says believing in something based on bad evidence is bad. Also makes sense. At a macro scale, I think for me as an individual, it still has utility for me to believe in a higher power. That has utility, that just makes me feel better. The problem is when he then goes, okay, so you pray to God to help you pass this exam or help you find your car keys, but then there's thousands of children that die in a tsunami. That God is either incompetent or cruel. Oh no, it's part of God's plan. Really? right? So it's like, and Jordan Peterson has released a book or is about to release a book, like those of us who struggle with God, right? Or something like that. And it's like, I'm really not here to dictate what people should believe or shouldn't believe. I'm not interested in religious discussions at all. And I'm just curious. Because for me, I'm just like, I would really love to believe. But there's also really good arguments that I've never heard a good argument against it. So I'm German enough that I'm very based in objective reality. But I also personally want the feeling of being taken care of by a higher power. And I believe it has utility, yet there are good arguments against it. So saying that I fully resolved this within myself would be a lie. Where do you stand with this?
Yeah, I love the vulnerability and transparency about that. So I want to ask you, did you ever have an intuition about something and then maybe go against it and be like, that bit me in the ass, I should have listened to my intuition?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So that intuition is a knowing that comes from relationship with whatever it is. For me, creator, source, quantum, whatever your thing is, I would say.
Yeah.
For me personally, similar to you, I'm not very religious. I've become very, very spiritual. I'm very deep into Kabbalah right now. I love that stuff. I used to be more of a spiritual shopper, but I really gravitated towards this. And my relationship with Creator goes every single day. I believe the soul has two purposes. One is to identify and actualize our unique gifts in the world and share them. And then the other is to correct our own negative tendencies and transform them, get to our next level. And there is a lot of evil in the world and so forth. And this might sound corny, but I think if everybody would just correct or work on identifying their own negative tendencies, because we all have them, no one's a saint, then we could literally, as a collective consciousness, change everything. But there's a lot of victim consciousness out there. There's a lot of pointing fingers. The politics couldn't divide people more. And so that's a whole different conversation. But I'm with you in regards to spirituality as opposed to maybe being super religious. And I would just say, for anyone listening, really, we want you to choose your own thing. Yeah. But if you believe that there's more going on here than just beyond our logic, then that is a good indication that there's something bigger that's, calling the shots.
I think so too. And there's certain talking about intuition, and there have been moments of like coincidence where like the probability of that being a coincidence is so low, right? So
yeah, I don't think there are any coincidences, quite frankly.
No.
Yeah. I could totally jam on this for an hour, but we'll put a pin in there. We'll come back to this. I wanted to ask you, what is a better or more effective way to begin to learn how to flirt better? If you're a man or you just want to become a little bit more seductive or, intrigue a woman more than just, hi, how are you? Like, what's a more effective way to flirt?
Specifically tips or how to go about learning it?
Both.
Okay. Let's start with a couple of concrete tips for people first. And then, because the way you learn it is there's two things, reference, experience, and feedback, right? I learn it by myself, I learn it from somebody else. That's it. Like, you got to get out there, you actually got to do it, right? You got to go and talk to women, like if you're a man, right? It's like men struggle with this more than women. Women also do, for sure, but like it's more difficult for men, absolutely. And so you got to go out there and talk to a lot. That's one. Now, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result also ain't great. So you also need some sort of feedback. Somebody will have to guide you. It can be free resources, can be paid resources, but you're gonna get some sort of feedback. But concrete tips in terms of flirting is just the first basic thing that most men don't do enough of, and some do too much of, is compliments. A really good way to create a man-woman connection, to build a sense of spark, is just to use a compliment. Hey, you have the cutest facial expressions when you're trying to explain something, right? Like something like that. You're like, yeah, exactly. It's not true. But it's a good one, right? And it's not about the line. Ideally, the more tailored the compliment, the better. But let's face it, human beings, there's only so many patterns that we can consciously live out or unconsciously. So the things that I can compliment her for, I can compliment somebody else for at some point. So the more tailored, an observational compliment is the best. But even just saying, hey, I really like your eyes, or I really like your posture. Or like if you want to be a little bit silly, you want to add a little bit of push-pull, you can say, hey, I really like your eyes. They're so big. I can see myself in them. Ha ha ha. Or I like your hair. Thank you. Is it real? A little bit of a tease. The teasing, the push-pull component, I'm going to talk about it in a second. But even just the compliment, hey, I like your posture. So for me, posture is really important. Like, hey, sorry, really amazing posture. That's different. That hits. So most men don't give enough compliments. Even just that makes a difference. The other thing on how to become more flirty is even just eye contact. Most men can't even hold eye contact. Like, when you hold eye contact, she has to realize you mean business. Don't stare in a weird, creepy way, for God's sake, I don't mean that. But can you hold relaxed and steady eye contact? And it also means intent. Being okay with your intimacy, with your sexuality. Don't overdo it. Don't always be calibrated. Make sure she's comfortable. But the good, the kind, the sweet, the intelligent guys, the guys who are stable in life, they're not trained to be sexual at all. And yeah, even just how do you look at her? And even just even just a little, eye contact, 3 seconds longer. That makes a big difference. Then another one is, so it's basically 3 ways to build that, right? There's verbal, and then there's physical, right? Through the words that I use and how I say them, and then through physical touch. And there's also obviously tonality. How do I say that? Does the voice, do I have rapport-seeking tonality every single time? Does my voice go up at the end of every sentence? Is everything that I phrase a question? Right? So that lacks a little bit of that. And then what do I talk about? You can build a spark also just by talking about interesting subjects. You can talk about dating subjects. Don't talk about your ex or her ex, but you can talk about exciting things. You can talk about adventures. You can talk about spirituality. You can talk about subjects that relate to the subject of intimacy. That's one. And then in terms of physicality, it's also through physical. But there you have to be really calibrated. So the way you want to start with is, for example, if you're on a date, you can just really very simply, non-invasive, you just start with a fist bump. Or you start with a high five. And then you have to read her signals. You're always going to get one of 3 signals. You're going to get a positive, a neutral, or a negative. If I give her a high five and she does this, that's pretty neutral. That's fine. If this is my hand and this is her hand, she is a little hesitant, that's a negative. Then I don't want to go to the next step. But if I do this and she does this, well, that's a great sign, So from there, I can then, while I'm talking to her, I can, for example, because the first date should always be in a bar, not alcoholic drinks, not hiking or mini golf or some nonsense, just meet her in a bar because it's about communication, very important. People want to argue with me about this. No, there's no arguments. I've had clients from 30 countries, hundreds of them. This is the proven process. First date, always non-alcoholic drinks in a bar. If you must drink, have alcohol, but ideally alcohol-free, right? It's not about the money. It's just because alcohol is a neurotoxin and it's a social calibration, and you'll never be able to feel truly confident as long as you rely on this liquid confidence. So when you sit next to her, you can just for half a second, you can put the back of your hand on her shoulder. Boom. See how she reacts. And then that's very non-invasive. And if she shrinks back a little bit, you immediately create space and you don't build another physical contact, you don't do that anymore for 15 or 30 minutes. But if she does this, okay, eventually you can go for the hug, and then you build it until eventually after an hour and a half, you just slowly go for the kiss.
Okay. I love what you said earlier too about the push and pull, right? Give a compliment, but also there's a fine line between giving a compliment, being assertive, but also being a little bit too generic.
Yeah, you have to create space. That's a problem. Now, a lot of guys are going, I'm just going to give her compliments, that's it. No, you also have to disqualify. Disqualify just means all these techniques, here's the thing, all these techniques that you learn when it comes to building attraction, they should all happen if you just authentically communicate. But the problem is just saying, just be yourself. That's the same thing as saying, just be rich. Yeah, but how? It's not practical. So just saying, technically, if I just say whatever is on my mind truly authentically, I will have a push, I will have a pull. I'll say something she agrees with, something that'll challenge her, especially when I'm in the flow, when I can access certain flow states and it just comes out in the moment. But that's a skill set that you gotta get to. So in the beginning, structure is important. Like anything in martial arts, playing the piano, in the beginning you have structure. Then when you become advanced, you leave structure behind and you're just composing on the piano while you're in the flow. But try to teach that to somebody who's never played piano in their lives before. 1, 2, 3, you need to learn the basics. So a little tease, a little challenge, really, women want that. They want to see that you're not too eager either. She in essence needs to see that you're willing to walk away at any given point in time. Not because you're harsh, not aggressive, not because you're none of that. But she just needs to see that you couldn't give a solitary fuck whether this date goes well or not. It's just because you're playful and you're fun. And the way she realizes this is freedom of expression. If people take this away, this is the key. Freedom of expression. If she can see you freely express yourself in a way that most people wouldn't on the date, that builds a lot of attraction. She's like, whoa. Because most guys are so stifled, especially men who learn professional communication, people who run businesses, the guys that are doing well in their careers. They're very logical. They're very professional in their communication. Then they bring the same communication on the date. I don't know why she lost interest in me. Because you're boring as f***. That's why. Not you are, but you communicate like it. They're really not. They have exciting stories they could tell, but they communicate it in such a boring fashion that obviously she's going to find somebody else, maybe a addicted bartender, who at least provides her with more emotions.
100%. I'm all about the bold move, like be a little bit adventurous, dictate some
Yeah.
interesting conversations, think outside the box. And I love what you said about disqualify. It's not like putting anybody down, but it's letting her know, like, we both have options, but
Yeah.
I want to be here right now. But if not, that's okay too.
Exactly.
Because I think it's just psychology. I don't think anybody's wired to want something more than they think they could easily have. Right? So there's an art to this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you're being inauthentic. Just like anything.
And it's together, it's a play, it's a mating dance. It's like, it's not manipulation at all. There are some people who are doing that. But by the way, the difference between manipulation and influence, from my understanding, because I had to think about this a lot, is manipulation in physics is the same thing as influence. You manipulate the curvature of the object. Manipulation in physics, actually, from my understanding, I know nothing about it, but it's the same thing. Manipulation and influence is the same thing in physics. Now, in the realm of social dynamics, we don't feel about it quite the same. Manipulation has a very negative connotation. Influence, positive. Where's the difference? One, am I honest with what I'm saying? Second, what's my intent for the other person? Three, am I acting in a way that creates a win-win? So for me is, if I'm not speaking the truth, if I'm misstating facts to get you to do something that I'll benefit from and then you won't, that's manipulation. If I'm honest and I'm doing something that's gonna get me a win and you a loss, that's still manipulation in my book. So it's like, do I do something that creates a win-win or is it a win-lose? And am I honest about it? Then that's influence, okay? We're trying to influence each other all the time, of course, but it's my base belief is if it's meant to be, there's nothing in the world that I can do to f this up. If it's not meant to be, there's nothing in the world that I can do to make it work. Now, that is the belief that I have to have in the moment on the date. I still then have to go back and work on my communication skills because you can still make technical mistakes in your texting. For example, one wrong text and she loses interest, right? Like that can literally happen. But intent really matters. Is my intent when I give a little tease? Same with people in general. Some people make fun of you in a way to put you down in front of others. And some people, like good male friends, they tease each other, but it comes with warm, loving energy. Like, oh, you're such haha, right? Oh, that was a compliment, you know? It's like, what's the energy that it comes with? Is it a mating dance? Is it a game that we play together so we create our own little reality? Or is it just me against you? Like I think intent is gonna shine through.
You nailed it, brother. It's the consciousness that you're coming from.
Yeah.
Side note, I can't even believe that we've been chatting for almost an hour. One of the best conversations I've had. This is awesome.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask you this one before we land the plane. Well, maybe a short answer, maybe not, but I think this is pivotal in 2024. What are some good texting rules to know for men?
Yeah. First of all, rough, and this is all tested, right? Like I have data on this. I'm not making any of this up. Please use this. Roughly match the amount she's texting. That's one. Right? Second, don't write massive blocks of text if she's writing this little. That's one. Second, roughly match her response time. If she takes 6 hours to respond and you always respond within 5 minutes, you're too available. If you're too available, she won't respect you. She won't respect you, attraction goes down. 5 to 15 messages from a dating app until you go for the date invite. Okay? Date invite, let's meet for drinks one of these days. She says, cool. Then you nail down the logistics and you suggest a concrete time and place. Those are a couple that if you even just follow, you don't do anything weird, not overly sexual. Texting goes deeper in this, but like even just these, thereby you eliminate 60-70% of the mistakes a lot of men making. That, please already put that into practice and you'll already get better results. Yeah, because 99% of men suck at texting. It's unbelievable.
That was so helpful, brother. Don't seem too available, match the time, all great stuff. Love it. Before we land the plane and do a quick rapid fire, have some fun. This was amazing, brother, straight up.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
One of the many reasons why I love what you're up to is because, number one, you're helping a lot of guys and stuff like that, but I really think that all this advice, this content you talk about is transferable for life.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about right now, and how can our community audience possibly get involved?
What am I most excited about? What am I most excited about? So many things, man. I want people to feel at home in the world. I wrote this down when I was 16. I think I wrote some vision statements, some personal development seminar that I attended. I don't know. And the way you feel at home in the world is through people, right? So I want people to have friendships, right? That's important. The one message outside of dating that the sword that I'm willing to die on is men having high quality friendships with other men and for women as well. Friendships are so much more important because with family members, some are amazing, some are horrible, right? For you. So you love your family and you choose your friends. Some of us are gifted to have amazing family members. I am, some not, right? So friendships, talk to people. if people take one thing away, you can, in the next couple of months, find 1 to 2 new best friends that you keep for the rest of your life, and your happiness will not just double, it'll triple or quadruple. 100%. The one thing is, for men and women, especially for men, find quality male friends. Go to the gym, ask dude outs for coffee, call them bro, let's get coffee one of these days. In the gym, personal development groups. Make an effort for the rest of 2024 to get quality friendships. It is the single biggest lever for happiness, that social contact.
Beautiful, brother. And I look forward to building this friendship. So much alignment. And if people want to get involved or coaching or helping, is there a way for them to do that? And what's the best way?
Thank you. Yeah, we have a website, davidmeessen.com. We have Instagram. They can check out. We have like thousands of videos on Instagram, 1,000 to 2,000 or something. 300 videos on YouTube. They can check all that out. Yeah.
Quick rapid fire, maybe 1 or 2 answers. Don't think too hard. Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Favorite movie?
Harry Potter.
Good one. Favorite guilty pleasure?
Chocolate.
Same. You mentioned a lot of people that you look up to, and so I'm excited to hear this one. Favorite book?
Tony Robbins. All of his books. Yeah.
Okay. One morning ritual essential.
There's one video. If you go to YouTube and you type in emotional flooding technique, Tony Robbins, it's a 5-minute gratitude meditation. You do this. It takes 5 minutes. It's like a white image. It has a white image. You do that 5 minutes. And you will feel 50% better with a 5-minute time investment guaranteed.
Love it, brother. Last one, very deep. Your favorite musician?
Imagine Dragons.
Good one.
Yeah.
Oh, good one. Bro, this was incredible. Hang on for 1 second when I kick you after. David, I can personally guarantee your best is yet to come. Thank you so much for stopping by today and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much.